Yes, sir. This,
and then there are some passages that may be highlighted that we have access to. And these are the designations, and then this will be here how that. Sorry.
and the objections on the,
And we agree with all.
they're all, okay, good. All right, I believe we're ready to begin then with the deposition of Edwin Moore. You may proceed, ma'am.
Yes, Your Honor. Can you please state your full name for the record?
Edwin E. Moore,
Where do you live?
1311 Agnew Road, Star, South Carolina.
What was your date of birth?
8/31/52.
Are you married?
Yes,
What's your wife's name?
Christine Moore,
Is that your first wife?
second wife.
Tell me about your educational background.
I took college courses, dropped out of Clemson, took some courses at Anderson College, different places. My work required me to take courses, and I took courses along. Went to real estate school at Wyatt, passed it, and went to auctioneer school in Kansas City, Missouri, and passed the auctioneer license. My job has required me to take additional courses. When I was in California, I took courses at Fuller 72 and taking continuing education. They require you to take at least 40 hours of continuing education a year, and I took courses, engineering courses, different places.
What degrees have you obtained?
I did not have any.
How about professional licensure? Do you have any?
No.
Can you go through your work history for me?
Started at Clark Schwebel Fiberglass, left there and went to the Sheriff's Department and worked at the Sheriff's Department as a deputy sheriff for about 4 years. Left there and started in construction with Daniel Construction and worked my way up over the years. I worked at the Savannah River site. Then I went back to Floor Daniel and worked with them for 20 years. Started out as a designer, worked my way up to an engineering design supervisor with them, and then the work got slow and our department went from 1,000 people down to less than 100, and I went on leave of absence. And then I ended up getting laid off. Then I left, and I've been over at Jacobs now for a little over a year.
What do you do there?
I'm a senior piping designer in engineering.
And you may have said this, and if you did, I apologize, but for how long were you at Floor Daniel?
Over 20 years, and then with Daniel, I had like 6 years with them. And they totaled it up and they gave me my credit for that, so 20-something years.
Where were you stationed when you were with Floor Daniel?
All over the world. I worked in Russia, South Africa, Germany, China, Taiwan, even went down into Australia one time. Been to Korea, London, just everywhere.
What states have you lived in the United States?
Always maintained my home base at Star in Anderson County.
Have you lived in any other state for an extended period of time?
I had an apartment in California, like they send you to different job sites. And I had an apartment in California in Thousand Oaks, and an apartment that we were up in Canada for a while too. I forgot that. And a place up in Rhode Island when we worked up in Rhode Island. They generally set you up in an apartment and then you fly back and forth home frequently. Also worked about Kuwait. I forgot about Kuwait and Saudi.
Have you obtained any professional licenses in any other state other than South Carolina?
No.
What was your title at Floor Daniel?
Engineering design supervisor, piping engineering design supervisor, and then in jobs in the field, like in Kuwait, my job title was field engineer in the field.
What does an engineer design supervisor do?
In charge of piping and mechanical systems. That's what I did.
Would you consider what you did as providing engineering services?
I would.
Were you in South Carolina while you were doing this?
As a designer, we were doing engineering services. We have like a PE that works in our group. We prepare work and then the registered PE checks the work and signs and stamps the drawings.
I'd like to turn your attention to your preparation for your deposition. What did you do to prepare for that deposition?
Just try to remember everything that's just happened.
Did you review any documents?
I don't recall reviewing anything, just except the only thing I looked over is the lawsuit. That's pretty much it.
What lawsuit? The lawsuit that the county filed?
Yes.
You don't recall reviewing any documents, or you didn't review any documents.
I don't recall. I don't recall reviewing anything really much.
Did you meet with anyone to talk about your deposition?
I did, the attorneys.
After you received that notice, who did you talk to about your upcoming deposition?
I mentioned it to our interim administrator and probably several council members.
Is that it?
And of course the attorneys.
Other than the attorneys?
I don't recall anybody else.
Did you talk to Dan Harville about it?
I think I did mention to Dan Harville that I was going to be under deposition. I think I did, yes.
These conversations would have only occurred during the past 2 weeks, right?
I don't recall how many times. I really don't recall.
Who else? Did you talk to anyone else about it?
I can't remember anybody else.
Is that a no, you didn't, or yes, you did?
I don't recall.
Okay, so your testimony is that you can't remember what occurred during the past 14 days. Is your testimony that you can't recall the conversations you had during the past 14 days?
I recall Dan Harville.
Is that it?
I don't recall talking to anybody else in casual conversations other than council members.
I'm going to ask you about some individuals, and the purposes of my question is just to figure out what relationship you may have or may not have with them. The first name I'd like to ask you about is Stan Welsh. Do you know Stan Welsh?
Yes,
Are you friends with Stan Welsh?
we are acquaintances. He's a journalist.
Stan's a reporter?
Yes,
Do you communicate with him regularly?
I have communicated with him, yes.
How regularly?
We would do emails some.
What do you mean by some?
We would send emails back and forth some, yes.
What I'm trying to ascertain is what you meant by some. How often?
I don't recall. I mean, I do a lot of emails and don't recall how many.
How about Dan Harville? Are you personal friends with Dan Harville?
I like Dan. He's a Republican chairman. I know him real well.
How long have you known him?
I've probably known Dan, maybe I've known him because of his profession for years. But as far as knowing him, talking to him, probably 6 or 7 years.
Do you speak with him regularly?
We do. We talk. We sure do.
Do you have a cell phone number?
I do.
Does he have yours?
He does.
How about Cindy Wilson?
Yes.
Are you related in any way to Cindy Wilson?
We're not related.
Are you friends with Cindy Wilson?
Yes, I am.
Do you speak with her regularly?
Yes, I do.
Does she have your cell phone number?
Yes,
Do you have hers?
absolutely.
Does she have your home phone number?
Yes,
Do you have hers?
yes.
How long have you had your current computer?
My other one fried and I had to get a new one. I'm not exactly sure how long I've had it. It's probably a little over a year. Whenever my last computer got hit by lightning, we lost TV and all kinds of stuff. Whenever that was, I'd have to look back. It's been at least a year, over a year.
In what month did your last computer get struck by lightning?
I cannot recall the exact date, but it's been over a year ago.
Was that before or after you received a subpoena for the information on your computer?
It was during that time. I'm not exactly sure whether it was before or after. I'd have to go back and look.
You don't remember. Do you remember receiving a subpoena?
Yes.
But you don't remember whether the lightning hit your computer before or after you actually received the subpoena?
I don't recall that with the time frame. We gave it, I really don't recall.
What did you do with the computer that was struck by lightning?
I took it up to the county and I got the permission from the administrator if I could take my computer to the county to see if it could be fixed or to be able to get my emails off it. And we took it up to the county and the technician said the lightning had fried it pretty bad, but there was companies that could recover it.
What technician did you take it to?
I let the county, they took it over to right there on 81 and they recovered it. I think they recovered it and put it down, everything on a little drive and gave it back to me, what they recovered. I recovered all my emails off of it.
You did recover all your emails off of it?
Yes.
What information could you not recover off of it?
I don't recall losing, most everything I think was.
Is it your testimony that you delivered your computer to Mr. Gibson and then he delivered it to the IT technician that the county directed him to go to?
He took it to wherever to get it recovered from, right.
And what is your understanding of where the IT technician is located that he delivered it to?
I don't recall. I don't do stuff like that. I let other people do it. You would have to ask my attorney.
Was the last time you saw your computer when you delivered it to Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
As you sit here today, you cannot identify the location of the computer that was struck by lightning, can you?
No, I can't.
The lightning strike that you're talking about, are you talking about a time frame in the August of 2010 period?
I don't recall the exact time it was. I really don't.
How about Rick Driver? Are you friends with Rick Driver?
Yes.
Are you close friends with Rick Driver?
I would say that we're pretty good acquaintances.
Pretty good acquaintances or pretty good friends?
I guess you would call him a friend. Yes,
Do you communicate with him regularly?
I do.
Who is Jenna Trammell?
She used to be a reporter at the Times Examiner.
Was she on the staff for the Times Examiner?
I think she wrote articles for them.
Was she compensated by the Times Examiner?
I can't answer that.
What was your understanding? Was your understanding that she was paid by the Times Examiner?
I do not know.
How long have you known her?
Probably 5 or 6 years, somewhere in that time frame. Maybe a year longer. She wrote an article.
She wrote an article?
She wrote articles.
She wrote articles.
Articles, yes.
What did she wrote articles about?
She wrote them about county council and everything.
Did she ever write articles for you?
She did.
How did you meet her?
I don't really recall how I met her. I think we was probably at a Republican event, and seems like I met her at a Republican event. Maybe first time I ever met her was up at a Republican meeting. I guess is maybe the first time that I saw her.
Do you have any sort of accounting background?
Pardon?
Do you have any sort of accounting background?
Just courses I've taken.
Do you have a degree in accounting?
No, I don't.
Do you have any specialized training or licensure in accounting?
No, I don't.
You're not a CPA, are you?
No.
You're not licensed to conduct audits, are you?
No.
Have you received specific training to conduct audits?
No.
Have you ever been a member of the Taxpayers Association?
No.
Before coming today, when was the last time that you spoke with Cindy Wilson?
Yesterday.
What did you talk about?
Financial stuff with county.
Let's talk about Jenna Trammell a little bit more. Was your testimony that Jenna Trammell was a reporter?
I assume that she's a reporter with the Times Examiner because she had called me as far as representing with the Times Examiner when I talked to her, and she did that article for me.
Tell me about that. Who initiated that call?
She called me.
And what did she say?
She just said she wanted to do an article about me running for county council.
And did she conduct an interview?
Kind of, somewhat interview, yes.
Was it on the phone?
No, it was actually at a Christmas party, I think. Or not a Christmas party, but some kind of party we was at. I don't remember. But it was over at a friend's house, and she happened to come. There was a lot of Republicans there.
How long did the interview last?
Probably 10 minutes, maybe.
What kind of things did she ask you?
She asked me what I did, and where I worked, and things like that, and what I did, things like that.
Was this one of those meet the candidate introductory type interviews?
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Was the interview actually published?
It was in the Times Examiner, I think, yeah.
How many articles did Jenna Trammell write?
She wrote about county council members, and I remember writing 2 about me. There could have been more, but I remember 2.
Did you have any other interactions with her?
No.
That was it? Is that a yes?
Yes.
How many times would you say that you had communicated with her about these articles?
She sent emails back and forth. I got emails from her, and she talked on the phone maybe a few times. I can't remember exactly how many times. I know she sent me emails and things. She did email me some. I do remember some emails.
I'd like to show you what I'm going to mark as Exhibit 1 to your deposition. Is this document an email from Jenna Trammell to you dated April 23rd of 2008?
Yes.
Does this top email from Jenna to you relate to the article she wrote for or about you that was published in the Times Examiner?
Yes.
That was the original introductory article we talked about.
Yeah.
Were you the source of the information that was contained in the Times Examiner article?
She asked me a question.
Turn to page 2. Down below, about the middle of the page, do you see where it says candidate questions?
Uh-huh.
Is that information that you provided to Jim Trammell?
Yes.
Can you turn the page? The bottom of the page that is base stamped FE100329. Do you see that down in the bottom of the corner of the page? The base stamp is in the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
About halfway down, not even halfway down, about a third of the way down, there is a sentence that begins with, because of all my engineering training. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Does that sentence say, and I quote, because of all my engineering training, I have been a PE licensed engineer in 6 different states, end quote.
That's not correct.
You provided that information, didn't you?
It's not correct.
Did you provide that information?
Yes.
That information was untrue?
That's not right.
Did you understand that this information was going to be put into a newspaper article?
Yes.
Did you understand that you were going to have information about you biographically that was going to be inaccurate as published in a newspaper in public circulation?
Yes.
The sentence right before the paragraph number 3, do you see where it says, and I quote, I have a unique ability for smelling out rotten apples. We have an abundance of them right now in Anderson County, end quote.
Yes.
Do you have a unique ability to smell out rotten apples?
I do.
Down below it says, and I quote, I am a real fiscal conservative who hates a large and wasteful county government, end quote. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Are you a real fiscal conservative?
Yes.
What do you mean by a real fiscal conservative?
Transparent. Watch where you spend your dollars.
On the next page, the page that is dates numbered FE100330, do you see that?
Yeah.
There's a sentence right below where it says, number 7, and it begins, and I quote, having been responsible for large budgets in the hundreds of millions of dollars, as well as being an estimator, design supervisor, construction and office engineer, auditor, cost controls engineer, and construction management, gives me a unique insight as to what needs to be done for economic development and cost control. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Were you a construction engineer?
I've been a construction engineer in the field, yes.
How can you be a construction engineer without having an engineering degree?
I worked my way up in the field from a pipe fitter and taking a lot of courses and stuff with my job. And when you go out on overseas assignments, it was like a field engineer.
What is a cost control engineer?
Cost control watches how hours are being spent on a job, and you kind of watch and know exactly where every hour is being spent by every discipline.
What is an auditor?
Auditor would go in on a job, like one in Kuwait. We would go in and we check all the hours and the people and make sure everything matches up. Do the payroll, check the payroll, and things like that.
What is an office engineer?
Basically, when you go in on, like when I was over in Taiwan, an office engineer, you just work with different job sites that's in the area. And you have designers working under you.
In the state of South Carolina, you can't call yourself an engineer unless you actually have an engineering degree and license. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
And this was an article that was being published in a South Carolina newspaper.
Right.
What is your understanding, if any, about what the law is about calling yourself an engineer in South Carolina without the requisite licensure?
I understand that you can't do that in South Carolina if you work in South Carolina.
Because it's a crime, right?
Right.
Mr. Moore, did you give a deposition in the case of William Phillips as personal representative of the estate of Elizabeth Walsh versus Edwin Moore, civil action number 2001-CP-04-2579 on February 22nd of 2012?
Yes.
Did you take a sworn oath during that deposition?
Yes.
Did you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Yes.
Did you understand that the deposition was taken under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
During that deposition, did Attorney Tom Dunaway ask you, and I quote, okay, and what do you do for a living, question mark, end quote. Do you recall being asked that question?
Yes.
First, let me ask you this. Do you remember being asked what you do for a living during that deposition?
I do remember, yeah.
And your response in that deposition was, and I quote, I'm an engineer with Jacobs Engineering, end quote. Isn't that right?
I don't remember that. I thought I said I'm in engineering at Jacobs, but maybe I didn't.
I just showed you your deposition transcript from February 22nd of 2012, did I not?
Yes.
And line 24, could you read that into the record, please?
I'm an engineer with Jacobs Engineering.
Okay. And the truth is, you're not an engineer, correct?
No.
You weren't an engineer on February 22nd of 2012.
No.
And that testimony is false.
Yes.
Sure, let the record reflect that all the documents that I intend to use today are Bates numbered with the FE prefix. For example, Exhibit 2 is FE 100509. I will note for the record that the FE prefix reflects that these were all documents that are in the possession of Mr. Moore's personal counsel, who is Kurt Gibson, who is here today, and they were produced from Mr. Moore's Florida Daniel email account. Mr. Moore, is this an email from you to an email address of waimradio@yahoo.com, dated April 24th of 2008?
Right, yeah.
Whose email address is waimradio@yahoo.com?
That's WAIM Radio, which is a radio station.
That's Rick Driver's email address, isn't it?
Yes.
Who is blind copied on your email?
Travel.
Is that Jenna Trammell?
Uh-huh.
Why are you sending your campaign proofs to Rick Driver and Jenna Trammell on April 24th of 2008 as reflected in FE 100509?
She's an English major. For her to look it over and see if there's anything on it.
How about Mr. Driver?
Just for any pointers or anything.
Why would Mr. Driver be suitable for pointers?
He's in the news media.
Were these, well, let me scratch that and let me ask this. What were these? Were these campaign cards?
Just campaign cards, yeah.
Were they circulated in Anderson County?
Yes, they were.
The document, the campaign cards, as reflected in FE 100510 and FE 100511, were campaign cards that you handed out in Anderson County.
Yes.
Will you turn to the last page? The first bullet point in the second sentence says, and I quote, "Job is locally based with no travel required," end quote. Is that true?
Oh, the job I was working on at that time was working out on the green balls, so that was correct, yeah.
So the engineering design supervisor tasks that you referenced in the sentence directly before that were tasks that you performed and completed on behalf of clients in the state of South Carolina, correct?
As design supervisor over drafters and designers, yes. That's what my title is, design supervisor. I had drafters and designers.
Drafters and designers, does that language actually appear in the bullet point?